Good morning, everyone. I am John Thomas III, your editor of the Christian Recorder, and today we will be having our very special TCR dialogue. First, you're probably wondering, what am I wearing today? This is one of the hoodies from Target's Black History Month collection, and we would like you to go by and take a look at their products. For the first time in the store's history, they are sharing Black History Month apparel, so go take a look at what they're doing. Today's dialogue is very special. We will be interviewing Ms. Naledi Matlakala of the 19th Episcopal District. She is a lifelong AMEer, all of 21 years old, and our first interview from outside the United States. Due to issues with, well, not issues so much as concerns with timing as well as internet connectivity, we wanted to make sure that we got Ms. Matlakala in her best. So we recorded the interview last week, and we will be replaying that interview live. So we're about to play the interview, and I will tell you that when we did the interview live, there was about a span of 1 or 2 minutes where we had a connectivity issue, but we were able to sort that out. And the interview is in its full entirety. So we're going to play that for you now of Ms. Naledi Matlakala from the 19th Episcopal District, the reigning Miss Regal South Africa. You are truly in for a treat. And I'll come back at the end to give you some announcements of further information. Good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure today to bring to you another one of our TCR dialogues. We know that Black History Month is not only meant to be an American History Month, but a global Black History Month. And today I am excited to bring with us our first guest from outside the United States, Ms. Naledi Matlakala from the 19th Episcopal District, the reigning Miss Regal South Africa. She has beginning a very historic reign during one of South Africa's major beauty pageants, and we wanted to take this time to share her story and her work with the Connection AME Church. So, Naledi, thank you for being with us here this morning, all the way from South Africa. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So let's just go ahead and get into it. We were talking earlier about how in a lot of your pageant interviews, you really haven't had the opportunity to share about your life and your spiritual experience, because normally it's more about, stick to the narrow path. So let's start off with talking about a little bit about the AME Church and your faith in your personal life.
All right. Well, that is true. Yeah, often just, not discouraged, but it's not recommended to be incredibly religious. You are meant to be a point of an identity, in a sense where everybody can see themselves in you and what you have to say. Therefore, if you are too polarized to a thought, a belief of some sort, it turns to isolate an audience in a way that you're not meant to, because at the end of the day, you need to stand up in a way that it's for everybody. However, to ignore the role that the institution of church has played in my life would be futile, especially in this interview. It is one of my primary introductions to my spiritual identity, which I'm still in the pursuit of, discovering, in a sense. But it's quite funny because the role it has played in my life is very direct. I can't even imagine who I would be without the church, without the community of the church, but also without just what it, built on in terms of my identity. I grew up in a very church-orientated family. My family was always just, every Sunday in, out. And even when I myself started just, developing my own identity, independent of that, I always just went back to that. They just teach you that faith really is the anchor for the soul. I can't imagine using any other anchors apart from faith. It always comes back to that. But just quite funnily enough, I'd love to share the story that even though now I'm within pageantry and I've seen some kind of success, to see that, the institution of church has always been where it starts. The first pageant I ever won was one that was happening at church, one that made me feel as though, wow. Yes, it was the Miss Mokoni. I won it. And it was the first time I participated in a pageant, but also the first time I won one. So this directly informed me of the kind of potential I could then explore, even outside of that. and it is directly responsible for the position I'm in right now, right this second, with another sash.
Interesting. So let's talk a little bit more about your involvement in the AME Church. So we were talking earlier, you're 21 years old, right? So
Yes.
you are very active in the YPD.
Mm.
But the YPD is sharing an important part of your life. So I mean,
Definitely.
and I know you're busy now because you're doing all of this, but you've been in the YPD,
Fundamentals, yes.
other church organizations. So how do you balance it all? I mean, how do you, given your increasingly hectic schedule, how have you found time to really like ground yourself in faith and spend time in church?
This is something I believe in, because I used to be overwhelmed by the idea that balance is something one can never really, really access. I used to be overwhelmed by that, because then you realize, oh my goodness, if I can't access balance, because now really, that means I can't get to do it all. But then really it comes back to God already knows what you can do and where you come short. Therefore, he kind of already knows what you're going to do and where you're going to fall short. And to kind of, establish that yourself before, without realizing just how he knows better, is doing a disservice to both this God you serve and the gift he has given you. So I don't really manage it all, but sometimes somehow it works out. I find myself in spaces and they work out. And there are moments where I look in those spaces, I look at myself within those spaces and realize wholeheartedly it has nothing to do with me, but God's intervention and interference. It's very true for the current title I have, with the way everything was going on. I had a job, full-time student, and I had to juggle the final week of the pageantry. However, I was having a horrible day when the day of the crowning, the day of the shooting, and we were crowning and everything. And I always say this to my mom, that I did not win because of, let's say, my own capabilities. I won because of people's prayers in their hearts, the community that stood behind me. I knew what they were doing that day when I went to go compete on that stage. My mom woke up in the morning. She fasted the entire week, woke up in the morning. I know. She lit the candles. And I was alone in that in the space on the stage, but the moment was carried by so many other hearts beyond me. So that's always something I believed in, that I'm not responsible for it all, that I can't do it all. So I have to believe more is responsible for it all beyond me, basically.
Well, that's a great segue to our next question. Let's talk about a little bit more about the Miss Regal South Africa pageant, because I know there's a world of pageantry. So let's talk about this specific title and how it relates into the world of pageantry. And just, since you're well experienced in the beauty pageant world, let's talk a little bit more about that.
I am not that experienced.
Well, you said you have multiple sashes, but
no, it's quite funny, because I think with every sash, it has been very intentional. I do not enter every pageant, mindlessly. So I'm always about, what does the sash have to say? I always say your sash needs to be empowered. It needs to have a message, and that message needs to be carried. Because once they see the sash on your chest, the very first question they ask is, oh, what is that about? And instantly that message, the intentions that you went the sash up for after, need to come back to your mind and tell them that. So I always establish, what are my goals? What are my intentions? What about the brand attracts me? And Miss Regal International comes back to, let's say, me standing up for myself as a woman in a world that keeps me, oppressed in many systems, in many ways. So Miss Regal International South Africa is really, I think, at this point, a platform in pursuit of finding young leaders, girls in their communities, who not only can be empowered voices, but can lead from an empowered place of love. And this is something I kind of defined in my own reign, that I don't want to lead from a place of, oh, I'm so empowered, I am an activist for certain communities and certain issues that concern them. I want to lead from a place of an empowered love, lead from a place of, a person should relate to me in a way that they really are connected. I'm not fighting, I'm not expressive. I'm standing up for you by wearing this, So they work with Power, which is basically a national organization responsible for sheltering, legal, and clinical services, providing those services to victims and survivors of domestic and sexual abuse. And
Wow.
personally, yes, for me, once I saw Power, it's right here on my sash. I wear it across my heart each day. I am out there speaking about it. I have to make sure that it comes back to that message, because for me, there came a time whereby I realized that day by day, the threat of me being the next survivor, or rather the victim of domestic or sexual abuse in any shape or form, is way closer than it needs to be. And that reality is the scariest realization ever. And there came a moment whereby I needed to start doing something about it. And I found myself feeling like, okay, you're already involved in pageantry, but now you need to find a brand that aligns with the voice you want to adopt. And this was the voice that I am currently just about expressing, that I'm fighting for my future, in a sense. I want to just disband this very toxic culture that makes women feel oppressed and that makes men feel entitled. But also, healing, like I said, you can't just be an empowered voice. You have to come from a place of empowered love. You can't then marginalize the men in this healing process and think they are excluded from the conversation. My own cause, my own message, whenever they used to ask me, what do you think? I always just said, I'm invested in healing of both the genders. I'm invested in the healing of the women, and I'm invested in the healing of the men, so that we can all heal the interaction all at once. So it's just about, that's my own identity within the brand, where I've just kind of been like, you need to be a leader that's redefined, and it needs to be informed by you, what your struggles, the anticipated struggles, but also a better future and a better space you'd like to see for yourself and the next girl.
It's interesting that you bring up domestic violence, because I know that is one of the major issues the country's dealing with right now. So how have you incorporated that into your platform? What are some of the things you're doing to deal with that?
So exactly. Yeah. Now I'm going to get really. So gender-based violence is a crisis. It is urgent. It is not, most often when we talk about social justice issues, people think it's such a trendy topic to hop on, that it's hot 1 second and it's not the next. It's an everyday reality for women out there. Every day I get out there, I stand to be, threatened. So for me, that's exactly what it is. I do something about it in private moments, and my message is for that, for everyone to make sure that they do the private work in making sure that, when we get out there and it's all public and so forth, there's actual progress that we can see, because I always say, publicly, there's only so much you can do until people really have to step up and do the private work, the harder work themselves. However, being directly involved with Power means that I get to raise funds and facilities that they may be in need of. There's shelters across South Africa. Some are even secretive, because these are real stories. These are real women that they're trying to protect. They run away from their homes. They run away from their abusive partners. They run away from their very violent experiences. So part of it is to make sure that these homes are a welcomed and a warm environment. So I ran a drive last year where I was collecting decorative materials, because often, and I don't know if this is the culture in South Africa, but charity seems to not include elegance for some reason. So in my head, I'm like, what about making their homes beautiful? I can imagine the rooms that they sleep in. They might need paintings. How come my room gets to have a painting? Does she have a painting that can inspire her heart? Does she have a nice colored wall that she would like? Just things that make this place of safety and convert it into a home. That's part of the work we've done. But also another thing that I've been working on is applauding the ladies in charge of the work that fails. The work that so many of us really can't even bear to do. The ladies in charge of power, they've really started something special. So I often really honor them. I organize with sponsors cupcakes for them to have with some tea. I make nice letters because these are the ladies taking care of, the women, and they are directly confronted by such triggering, realities that I may never ever witness. So the weight of that is something I like to ease on them. I always consider them. I consider the work that they do, and I take it upon myself to make sure that they understand they are the real queen. They are the real queens, unsung heroes, So that's that. But also advocacy, conversations, exchanges, every interaction, conversation that I get to have is a moment where I can really, really speak about gender-based violence. My own advocacy in the crisis is that where are the men's voice in it? I would like to hear the gentleman's voice, their stance. We know their role in the crisis, but where is their role in the awareness and the situation attached to this crisis? Is my advocacy that how can we hope for a healed interaction when we consider only one, gender and not the other? Be invested in both the healings is where I stand.
Interesting. Wow. We're jumping all over the place. This is really good. But this was at its core, a pageant giving you a platform. So can you take us back to the pageant and take us back to that experience and just, walk us through, that day? Like, how many people were in this pageant? And,
wow.
What does it mean
no one
to be
ever asks me that.
Here, and what's
I'm
next?
so happy. No one really ever asks about the journey, No one, because I think oh goodness me, I had such an unconventional experience, and this is the one thing I'm actually proud of about this brand, and it's one of the things I was hoping to put out there, that we were the first virtual pageant in South Africa. So we were in still like intense lockdown when our, organizers finally decided that, what, we have to make sure that these goals, dreams and goals are seen through. We need to send the message that adapt and conquer is something that we'd like for them to also, adopt moving forward in their lives. So our pageant moved forward. We were 12, there was hundreds of girls who auditioned around about this time, actually, in February 2020. Hopeful girls, everybody, all shapes and sizes. And I had such a very, I don't know how to put it. I normally know what to anticipate in situations because I anticipate how I'm going to be in those situations. But Miss Regal totally pulled the carpet off of my feet because it exposed how much work I have to do from the inside. You often think you're so confident and you walk around thinking that, you're so aware of what's best about you that you don't know about the work that needs to be done. And this pageant exposed that to me. I always adopted this quality that capitalize on your strengths. Like that's the best way to go about it. But you can't capitalize on your strengths while completely ignoring your weaknesses. So that's what I went through. Day of the auditions, I barely made it, but I did. And they already immediately told me that you need to work on yourself. You need to heal. You are, basically representing yourself from a place of a person who's not sure. And that's not the girl we're looking for. So I knew my work then. You walk into the pageant saying, I'm going to do so much for the community. But after the audition, and by some chance I made it as a finalist, I realized my work was going to have to be a lot more internal than external, which is always a harder experience to kind of tackle. So throughout the year, I was working on myself, working on my whys, reevaluating where I stand in life and my place in it. And I think that's what won me the title, because by the time the final week came, and we had interviews before the final show, I was basically just talking from my place of truth. I had admitted that I wasn't ready when I came in, but I had grown from that. And not a lot of people care to admit that perhaps when I did this, I wasn't ready, but I admitted that. So the day of the shooting, quite because it was most virtual and everything, we shot it in studio. And then they put this virtual stage, post-production and everything. But what most people don't know is what I went through that day. The devil tested me. I will definitely admit to that. First walk, I sprained my ankle already. So,
wow.
Yes, Mr. I don't even want to. I never talk about this. I never really talk about the behind the scenes. It's not something you easily discuss. But first walk, I was the first girl starting the walk, and we had this dance routine we had to do. Like you said, it's a pageant. So the production is a part of it. Sprained my ankle. I had to change into another pair of heels. Second walk, those heels broke.
Wow.
During shooting. First walk, broke my ankle. Yes, I know. Second walk, the second pair of heels had torn. Third walk, I'm wearing the judges' heels now because they're like, this girl needs to finish this. And those heels basically tore by the side, if that's what I remember. The third time the wrong thing went, I stopped the production. I cried. I broke down. So shooting happening, and I remember my director stopping everything, and now he's on the top floor and he's like with the microphone, Naledi, what is wrong? So I didn't tell anyone I sprained my ankle. So he's now putting me in the spot, and he's like, Naledi, did you hurt yourself? And my world stopped. My world stopped because I knew what was writing on the next answer. If I said yes, they can't risk my health. They have to take me out. If I say no, I'm going to continue halting production because I'm messing up my walk over and over and over again. So I exploded into tears.
Wow.
I cried.
Wow.
In that second, I gave up. I was like, I want my mom. Mind you, this is a woman who's back at home, lighting the candles, praying for me, praying for the best. And now I want to go to her as a failure. And I just said to myself, I can't do this. Can you call my mom? I want to leave. Production stops for a second and I'm crying. One of the judges comes to me, looks me in the eye and says, you're going to finish this. And there's a reason why you're going to finish this. We already know who our winner is.
Whoa.
So now I just want you to enjoy yourself.
Whoa. Wow. Wow.
So when you hear that, I'm not thinking I'm the winner. There's no way I'm the winner. I mean, look at me. I'm so unprofessional. I stopped production. So I'm like, oh, so I lost? Oh, okay. So why am I freaking out? Why is this anxiety gnawing at me this much? I have nothing to lose. So let me just complete it. Everything goes back to order. Fix my makeup. And I cannot explain the weight of my shoulders. And I just continued for some... It's very crazy. I will never forget that judge. She's still my mentor right now. And she's just like, we already have our winner. What are you stressing about? I drank some anxiety pills and I just did everything. But this is crazy. There's something about when you write yourself off that when something else intervenes, when I tell you I did not win this pageant, people's prayers, people's hearts, they saw it through for me. I did not. Because by the time they announced top 5, I didn't think I was going to be in top 5. Everyone that day got a stream of questions. In pageantry, you receive the top 5 questions on the day to just scan over because it's not about putting anyone in a funny position. So all these girls know they have a chance. Throughout the day, they're scanning over the top 5 questions because they think they're in the top 5. They have decided that their efforts were good enough. I'm sitting there in my gown, crying. Well, I'm no longer crying, but I'm just sort of just like, I've done it. I've finished it. But my race ends here. So what's the point of looking into the top 5 questions? Sir, they announced the top 5. This is how just small things change. In my group, they say only 2 girls are in, right? I look around, I already picked my 2 goals, and I'm not part of that too. That's crazy, but that's just me being realistic. And then in the last second, he goes, wait a minute. Actually, 3 girls from this group are in the top 5. I still did not think it was me. But when he called my name in that top 5, I went to because it was a break after they announced the top 5. And by some chance, some miracle, I made it through. I sat in the bathroom, I prayed in my heart, and I told God, I'm like, if this was a chance to take it, this would be for mine to take. Because when it comes down to it, there's nothing about what I have to say that anybody can say is wrong, especially if you're going to come from a place of your own truth. So I was like, Naledi, this is your own chance. If you don't take this chance, then you have failed whoever saw this through for you. And that's basically how the rest went. When top 5 questions came, I didn't even know the questions. Every other girl did. But I just stood there and I answered my question, knowing full well that this is the only chance I have. The only chance, because I messed up my other chances. And there it was. There it happened.
And you have the sash and the crown. Well, if that's not a story of perseverance for our viewers, I don't know what is.
I don't even know it. I still can't tell you what happened that day.
And the fact that, but you said something that's important. When you let go of the fact that you had to perform perfectly and just were yourself, you won. That's a lesson here. That is indeed a lesson. So let's pivot a little bit, because this is an interview for the church. We have AMEs from here all around the Connectional Church.
Yes.
This is when you're watching this, and one of the things that I know on the state side we get to see, we see and hear South African worship. We see these little video clips of people with these wonderful, what we know of South Africa, we know through videos of songs. Some of us, like, we have the privilege to eat the food. My favorite snack foods are from South Africa. But what are some things you like? My favorite snack food, I love Drovors and the cream soda. My Sparlinta cream soda. Right. Everyone knows I love my green cream soda. But
so y'all don't have it over there?
No. Well, we have cream soda, but it's not green.
But it's not. Yeah.
It's not green. The green is special, and I like my chutney chips. But so tell us some things that you'd like our viewers to know about South Africa. We know what we see every now and then, like I said, through videos. There's several South Africans here in the States who are pastoring. But tell us some things that we should know about your country.
Yes.
All right, you're still there, so we can still hear you. So go on, keep talking. You're still here. Go on. You're good. So tell us some things that you'd like our AME viewers to know about South Africa.
Oh, sorry, your audio was a bit distorted, but what I gather is that tell us about a few things you'd like for us to know about your country. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, that's correct.
Yes.
That's correct.
Well, so if there's one thing you touched on is how we have just customs of our own like ways and traditions, and that is just so true, even especially for the church as well. We are vibrant, that's for sure. So that's something that I think everyone should know. But I feel as though this is not something a view often seen or experienced about South Africans. We are a lot more progressive than what's the word? I'm looking for the word. Than they give us credit for.
Really?
So yes, we are a lot more progressive than they give us credit for. So, just to remove all of the stereotypical views, I'm just thinking that we preached on, not even preached, but we kind of just displayed the spirit of, diversity, but also just how diversity can be beneficial and progressive in moments and in ways that and this is strongly opinionated, that I believe just most countries haven't caught on to. You know, we kind of established a long time ago that our diversities, our differences shouldn't be a divisive, you know, experience, but rather we've used it as an experience to show that we are so colorful, we are so vibrant, and we're accommodative. Everyone gets to have a home in South Africa. Everyone gets to have a place. So I think that's progressive because that's the current message in the world right now, that we all need to create spaces in which everybody feels at home with themselves within the world, you know, at a grand scale. But this is something that we had always just put out there, you know, the spirit of Ubuntu, the spirit of humility, the spirit of forgiveness. We have a lot to work on. I will admit that. So much to work on. However, I've always thought that the fact that we just, from the get-go, used our diversity as something to bring us together than rather divide us was a progressive South African experience that I'd like everybody to acknowledge and realize about, you know, South Africans in hindsight. Well,
Okay.
amongst many other things.
Amongst many other
Yes.
things, you know, because I mean, you are the true Rainbow Nation. I mean, it is the true
Exactly.
Rainbow Nation, you know.
And many
And I
nations use, yes, sorry.
go ahead, go ahead. No, go ahead.
People would use diversity as a moment to marginalize, you know, certain identities and minorities, so forth. With us, while those exist as well, we just maybe look at it from a point of view where let's rather celebrate that, even at the cost of not confronting the work that needs to be done. Let's
Mm.
just celebrate that and honor that and let that be the image and the message they know about us. Knowing that wherever they come from and they come here, there's always a place for them.
You know, that's interesting, you know, how you could say that on the one hand, and then, you know, on the other hand, you know, you have the issues with, you know, the immigrants coming in from Zimbabwe and Mozambique,
Ooh,
and
yes.
the tension there between wanting to be the Rainbow Nation, but at the same
And
time
then
dealing with, yeah. So,
we're not confronting the work we need to do still. That's always just been my stand, that, oh my goodness, this Rainbow Nation has kind of made it so easy to evade and confront the real conflicts that are very much in our faces and in our everyday lived experiences. But I think it's also such a standard to make sure we always uphold. So it keeps, I think, maybe people, especially me, accountable, that you're always going to have to make sure that as a South African, everybody feels at home, if not at a South African level, but at home with you as an individual. Which brings me back to what I stand up for. The private work will always exceed the public work and the public image. So that's what I believe in, that we are so problematic in many regards, especially where our neighbors, our neighboring countries are concerned. And the fact that we've always just sold the story of Ubuntu has made it so easy to forget the work we need to do. But I also think it's there for a reason. It's there to hold people accountable and to make sure and that people remember that there's a standard we need to uphold and contribute towards.
you know, I mean, given the fact that South Africa's only been truly free, if we could say that, for less than 30
If
years. I mean, you know, the US has been around for 2 centuries, and we just saw what happened in our US
oh,
capital. So, you know, I
you
mean, South
know,
Africa, the ideal of the Rainbow Nation, I mean, it's something that, you know, it's inspiring to see where the
it's
country is.
inspiring. You know, the image, and it's sometimes the concept really is as simple as that. You know, it
Mm,
should remain as simple as that, because when you realize the change that needs to happen, it's such an overwhelming image. So rather
mm,
hold on to things that are more inspired, to make sure that as you continue doing the other work that's exhaustive and draining and just diminishing and so forth, you
mm.
hold on to that. And going back to what I believe in, faith, hope, there are only anchors. Without those, then what do we really have, have to look forward towards to, so that's what I believe in, that at the end of the day, yeah, change the image too overwhelming, that maybe this a concept needs to be simplified so that you get started on the work either way.
Okay, well, that takes us to an interesting point in our interview, talking a little bit about the heritage of South Africa. We were talking earlier about the AME Church and its role in South Africa,
Yes.
and as many people know, Mother Charlotte Mekeke, she is considered the mother of the ANC, the first Black female
Yes.
graduate of
Oof.
the University of South Africa, and also a member of the AME Church.
AME Church.
And this is her centennial. Yes, this is her centennial anniversary. So, can you talk a little bit about what the legacy of Mother Mekeke means to you as we celebrate her 100th birthday all around the AME
Wow.
Church and South Africa?
Wow. So the legacy of Mother Matlakala is endless. I stand on her shoulders. And many other women, but I stand on her shoulders. The doors, the access that I have right now, I do not believe is something I would have as a South African woman of faith, but also as a South African woman who's so curious about the world. I don't think that's an access I would have had if it were not for women like her before us to provide that. She just puts out there that, and I'm sorry, this is going to get a little too activism, but the personal is so political. What you stand up for, who you are, how is that informed, is already revolutionary. So it's such a tiny revolution, just like she did, to express herself, to inform herself, to educate herself, and to liberate herself using that very education. It's such a tiny but impactful revolution to simply be yourself. So as a woman of color, instantly you're politicized because your actions they already go against systems that tell you can't. So she is just a legendary image and a figure who broke down those systems, and redefined them for girls like myself to come on and say that I get to do it and I can do it and I am doing it. So really, for me, it's a privilege to even quote her as a source of inspiration. It's not a source of inspiration. I think I don't know. It's a source of who I am, I suppose. You get to dream as a Black girl now because of women like
Wow.
her. And your dreams get to exceed everything else, So she is. I'd like to say, in a sense, that what Black women are doing across the globe, we just saw what happened with, America's deputy president. I think what's happening, we're becoming our ancestors' dreams, in a way that our ancestors were fighting for so much, but I don't think they ever imagined how that would translate into a true reality for a girl one day. And I'm that reality. And so many other girls are that reality because of Mother Charlotte and the extensive work they've done in all these multitudes of their lives. Also, that you can live a multifaceted life. That is something women don't get to have. Or just predisposed that you can't do it all. You can't, dominate each and every space, which perhaps maybe, but because I'll admit I definitely can't do it all. I'm barely doing it all. But the fact that you can dream and see that someone else has done it, she used her faith as her information to what kind of freedom she'd like to imagine for women in all spaces. She used faith as her information, education as her key to unlock, whatever system might have oppressed her. So it's just different teachings that as women, be multifaceted, and that should be just informed by every single part of your life. Nothing is ever not enough information. It's not only your education. Sometimes it's your faith. Sometimes it's opening doors in that space. Sometimes it's your career. It really just shows that you can do, freedom is just really a self-involved experience. And if I can just go on, my mom even knows. I never knew growing up, because I know about the hospital, right? We have
the hospital.
yes. So when I realized that it's one of our own, this is years ago as we're growing up, I just was blown away. And I can't even stand on her shoulders. I get to
Yeah.
see the world on top of her shoulders. That's it.
Wow. Remember, I was in Durban. I was at a meeting and we were driving down. There's a Charlotte McKechnie Street in Durban.
Yes.
And I was there
Yes.
for a meeting and I was like, that's one of our members. They were like,
that's one of our members.
That is,
it's
you know,
so, right? It's
yeah,
such a profoundly proud moment, you know, and now to know that the church just creates such potential out of the world, that is, you know, something to be proud of, to be proud to be a part of. That but the history of AME has always been such a very liberating experience, you know. It's always been about making sure that the Black voice is not only empowered.
All right.
Hello, Mr. John.
We're still
Yes,
here.
I'm so sorry
We're still
about
going.
that.
That's all right.
right.
So you were talking about the Black experience being liberating and empowering, right? When you got cut off, I think that was on purpose. They cut you off on purpose, but you were talking about the empowerment. So talk to us about that.
So yeah, you know, the history of the ME Church has always been about empowering the Black person's voice, empowering, just like liberating them in their spiritual identities, but also just making sure that they making their own identities in the world. They find their own community in back then in the US, where they can just, you know, also find means to express themselves in ways that are true to their own experience. So it has always just been such a progressive, and maybe this goes against what I told you earlier, that my view was always that we're such a traditional church, and I'm realizing that perhaps we are a lot more progressive than that. And even our history is so, you know, so progressively inclined that, you know, so I love that. I love that. That's the source of passion you can draw from time to time as well.
You know, it's interesting that you say that. As we go to our last question, just reflecting the fact that, like, you brought up the duality of the Rainbow Nation struggling with the immigrants from other nations coming in South Africa. In the same way, the AME Church continues to struggle with this liberation legacy on the one end, and then the traditionalism and other things that have kept us from not being as progressive as our founders would have imagined us to be.
Yes.
So we struggle with that too. But, you know, definitely, I mean, it is encouraging to hear you, you know, personally reflect on Brother Matlakala's work. And, you know, I wish that more of our American brothers and sisters will understand that the same way we venerate Rosa Parks, we must understand that the AME Church has touched. Touched people around the world, and Charlotte Matlakala should be support to us, as well as a part to support us around the world. But, you know, two powerful men from our church. So I want to close, you know, while the internet is still working, it's still going well, with this final question. So, you know, as a young person, because, you know, you're just knocking on 21, you know, so you have a whole world ahead of you. What do you see? Oh, come on now. What do you see as the future of South Africa? What do you see as the future of South Africa, and what do you see as your future? What are your own next steps?
Well, it's simple, and I like the fact that you mentioned I'm so young, because I really believe that is exactly the answer. For the future of South Africa, personally, I'd love the youth to be more in charge. You can't put anything for the youth should be by the youth, basically, and not enough of it is. So that is what I hope for in the future, because my youth is what I call my golden access. It just, in spite of, hello.
I'm still here. Keep talking. Keep talking.
In spite of the world and the ugliness it can just have, I think the fact that I still get to hold on to my optimism, my bright-eyed, doe-eyed look, my hope is such a refreshing approach to life and the world. So why not put more people in charge of it? The refreshing, the innovation, the hope, the passion. Put them in charge and see how far they can take you, is what I believe, and I'd like to see South Africa in. But then personally, I just really want to, so many of us are very invested in our personal goals, and I'm no different. I have personal goals to obviously study, eventually get my master's, be as educated as I can be, but never to be I don't want to stop being a student of life and experiences, but I also don't want my education being limited to what an institution can provide for me. I want to learn every way, from faith to people to communities to individuals. I just want to learn, is what I want for my whole life. And I want to always remain open to it, like I am right now. And I believe that just approaching it from that sense makes me feel as though I'm investing in people. I want to invest. I don't know how to put it, but I'm so hopeful. I want to invest my efforts in anything apart from myself, because I really believe you're not a successful person unless your success does something for the next person. You're not a leader unless your actions inspire others to do more, be more, dream more, or even say more. So it's always going to have to be about the next person when it comes to me. What do I say that makes the next person feel? What do I do? What makes the next person feel? Or what do I want them to do? So I always want to involve myself in experiences that elicit those kind of responses from anything outside of my own experience.
Wow, spoken like a true daughter of Charlotte and a true daughter of Rosa. Well, Naledi,
Yes.
thank you so much for taking this time to be with us. We made it through the interview.
Thank you for having me.
Any final last words for our viewers before we end our broadcast?
Well, just to say that, change is not like, if you want to always shift the world, all you need to do is shift your reality. The change that needs to happen is something you need to transform on a personal level. That's the best hope for change you can have. And it's the only constant we have, hope for change. So don't think about the grand scheme of things. Think about the personal. It always comes back to that. Is what I'd say, that if you want to change the world, change your reality. That's it. And you're already doing something about the world if you do that.
And so will we be expected to see you in any more beauty pageants over the next few years?
To be fair, you can tell I'm a little bit more expressive for pageants. I'm hoping. Now I want to get more involved with the United Nations work. So I am in those programs now, with SIA, something that I feel more, and like my voice can just always grow more. But if it leads back to pageantry again, I wouldn't be opposed. Always open to the journey.
I mean, you can be a beauty queen and an ambassador. So perhaps we're looking at the next foreign minister of South Africa in a couple of years. For
sure, yes. But I just don't really particularly enjoy how limiting it can be.
Of course,
even now, I'm limiting myself. I always have to censor myself, which is necessary. But man, oh man, oh man, there are spaces I hope to be involved in where I could just, yes.
And we know you're going to get there. But again,
Thank you so much.
thank you so
Thank you
much
so much.
for being with us this morning. And this has been a blessing to me, and I know it will be a blessing to our viewers from all over the church and around the world.
Yeah.
So thank you, Naledi.
I appreciate the time. I appreciate the opportunity. I'd like to thank Reverend Lasito as well for making it happen. I'd like to thank the AME Church at large, my small community of the AME Church, for always supporting me. The work that they do is very intentional in support of me. They vote for me. They take the message out there, and then they bring me to such moments. So I'd also just like to express my gratitude for that. It truly takes a village. You know, I'm only a child. You said it yourself. So how could I have done this myself? There's no possible way. But it's also because of the village. And most of it really comes back to the AME and, you know, people such as Reverend Lasito, my mom, everyone else, making sure that, yeah, we get here.
All right, so we close where we begin. Thank you, Naledi. God bless you, and we will hear from you soon.
Ooh, I hope so. Have
will.
a good day.
Okay, all right.
How do I?
All right, everyone. Thank you for watching that broadcast. A few things. First of all, I believe Naledi was on the broadcast, actually here live. So, Naledi, if you're still around, please comment in the chat. Also, we had with us today Bishop McLeod from the 19th District and Wanda Ringel, the Connectional YPD Director, also in the chat. So, thank you all for watching. And I saw a whole lot of persons from the 19th District and from around the Connectional Church. So, thank you for being a part of this broadcast. Also, I do need to say that Naledi is a member of Ark AME Church in Ekangala in the Macomb Conference, and the Reverend Martin Billy Mogoko is her pastor. Again, she mentioned Reverend Lasito, and I must mention Reverend Lasito again, our field representative for the 19th Episcopal District. Reverend Lasito has done an Herculean job in trying to make sure that we had her come in. Also news from the 19th District. So thank you, Reverend Lasito, if you're still on, for being a part of this. A few announcements before we move on. Today's broadcast, as you know, we have been relying on the generosity of sponsors to help us get to these broadcasts. Today's broadcast was sponsored by the Foster for Bishop campaign and the Eldridge for Treasurer campaign. We're always encouraging you to continue to subscribe to the Christian Recorder. It's only $36 a year, and we still do print and mail these. So go to our website or call us at 615-601-0450. Also, please use the AME Church Publishing House for your church, school, and worship needs. Every Sunday at 8 a.m. Eastern, there's the Connectional Church School. We encourage you to participate, as well as make sure that you continue to buy the church school materials and the other worship materials that they have, because we rely on support from our AMEs to continue to do this work and other work. As you know, Ash Wednesday is coming up, and we have our 2021 Lenten Daily Devotional produced by the Christian Education Department. You can order those today. Go to ameced.com. Once again, that is ameced.com to order your Lenten Daily Devotional. And as we know, we're in Black History Month. And our next dialogue will be on Thursday, when we will have Mrs. Ebony Pickett, the president of the Rosewood Family Reunion, as well as an AME church member. In fact, Ms. Ringgold, if you're still around, she is her church's local YPD director. She is the president of the Rosewood Family Reunion, and Mr. Chuck Hobbs. We will discuss the tragedy at Rosewood in 1923. Of course, as you know, Rosewood was a predominantly Black town in Florida that was burned to the ground by white residents from next door, and it is also one of the first cases on America's soil to achieve reparations for African Americans. And so we're going to talk about that there. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope that you will join us Thursday and for the rest of our Black History Month program. Continue to support the Sunday School Union and the AME Church and the Christian Recorder, and we look forward to seeing you next time.